Here we are, live in Mundelein. Good morning, Rabbi Sai. Lili Nishmasi Mirosi Rispas Mordechai. Wow! Unbelievable. Good morning, Rabbi Sai. It was the third day in the Omer. So, Be'ezer Hashem, I am giving 2 shiurim right now. I don't even have to say it for the YouTube guys. The Zoom guys know already. I'm only giving 1 share. Daf Mem Daled. That's all we need to know. Tomorrow, live share here in Mundelein at 4 p.m. The plumber is alive and well after going bye-bye. Yesterday's share, says Jack G. out in Jump Z, New York. That's Yossi Klein. He's alive and well, they say. Reb Nesanel Gans of Ami Magazine, the one who does so much work behind the scenes, getting these Gemaras out to everybody. He had a baby boy today. Actually, his wife did. But whatever, we'll give him all the credit. Chaim Palak, Reb Eli, I love you. Thank you so much for keeping the share during Ben Izmanim, during Pesach. You have helped me keep on schedule. Be'ezer Hashem Veiter, V-E-I-T-E-R. Davening after Shkia is in fact not controversial. Why do you say it's controversial? I hold it's not controversial. According to this sheet, the Reb Natam, which is Shulchan Paskins, there are 2 sheets, Shkias. The first Shkia is the regular Shkia that we all know and love. The second Shkia is 58.5 minutes after the first Shkia, and Ben Hashmosh is 39 minutes. The total equals 72 minutes. It's perfectly acceptable, I hold, he says, according to the sheet, da mincha up to the second Shkia. I wish I knew that my entire life. I was makbid by the first Shkia. Wow, what a tragedy. Now, Downing Chaves, after this man tefillah in the morning, that's a different story. Git Moed Chaim. Obviously, he has a little bit of heimishness to him, and he holds it's not controversial at all. The Meir holds it's very controversial. So what do we do, Chaim? I don't know. This is Rabbi Sai Shimi Leifman from Manchester. He holds that it's, even though it's tough and rough to get people to join during Yevamos, there's a way out of it. If you go to the zoo, there's a lot of characters there that will be willing to join. Here's the picture to prove it. Shkoyach. You guys see it? You have nothing to see it on? Maybe one of you guys should pull up a YouTube on your phone. Maybe, and share it. All right, Rabbi said this month's Koil sponsor is anonymous in the zechus of Hilben Soradino and Rivka Basfega. They should be zechus to Zerusha Kayoma. Parsa Chodesh, Bresler, Austein, Rosenberg, Schulman, and Tobias families. The zechus for Shlema, for Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Yisroel, Meir, Dovid, Ben Yocheved, Druck, Shlita. Parsa Chodesh by the Lock and Lebovic families, Lakewood NJ, because Torah is the best segulah. Parsa Chodesh. Chodesh Nisan sponsored by Eli Stefansky, Pinchas ben Moshe Olav Shalom, Eli Stefansky, Ahron Fraiman bas Dovid Pinchas Olav Shalom, and Eli Stefansky Shragi ben Avram Levi Olav Shalom. Ahron Fraiman zechus parnos and siat shmayon continue atzlacha to myself. Parnas hachodesh Ahron for atzlacha to the Magid Shir video to atzlacha in continuation and not to miss a shir. There's another sponsor here. I don't know if I'll be able to get to it. By lez'nn nishmas Btzalel Hirsch. Let me see if I could find it here. Oh. Let's get the real reading here. Btzalel Hirschhorn. Lilu Nishmas, my father Moshe ben Levi, was yours at his 3rd day of Chol Hamoed. The Abers, in memory of Tema Bas Nochum and in honor of Uncle Sam. And an additional sponsor, in honor of my father's birthday, Rabbi Avram Yankiv ben Rav Reuven Alevi Levin, at least till 120 good health in Yiddish and Nachas. Also, big mazel tov to Nesanel Gans on the birth of a son from Peretz Chaim Levin, Yesher Koyach, and Rabbi Sai. Here we go. Today is a very, very special daf. When we were learning Masechtas Yuma, I said that this daf, whoever could guess what this daf is, I'll give him $100. David Fine figured it out. Today is daf MDY. Mem Daled Yevamos. Mem Daled Yuma. So, the official Mishnah, sponsored by the MDY Tehillim Group, where we daven for Refuah Yeshuas and Shidduchim, for Klal Yisrael, and for the MDY family. Join us at tehillim.8mindaf.com. Brand new Mishnah. Arba achim nesuim, arba noshim v'meisu. There are 4 brothers married 4 different women, and they all died. Rabbi Sai, ladies and gentlemen, I want to show you an unbelievable new piece of merch. It's on the website right now. We don't make any money off it. It's not one of these things. It's not one of the sponsors. It's literally for cost. But I got to show you this. I'm very, very impressed by Yaakov Eyal. He's the one in charge of the merch, and he came up with this. It's unbelievable. It's our characters, all of them. You get even the little guys, they're all in the pack. So I wanted to show you what it looks like if you do this on a board. So here you have the four brothers, the four Baldwin brothers, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda, are all married to four different women. They're not related. To Rachel, 5 towns, but Ayin, and Burka lady. Now I want you to pay attention to this Burka lady. She's coming up in the next year. Unbelievable picture of her. Okay, what happened is they all go bye-bye. So if you don't have a computer, you have to go like this. They all go sideways. Geschmack. Now, if you do have a computer, so it looks like this. Here, I'm showing it here on my screen and you guys don't even see. This is unbelievable, this new computer. It's working great. Wow, the guys on Zoom see this live. Unbelievable. They're all married. It even says married, which I couldn't really do. Right? I had to do like this little arrow. And then they all go bye-bye. You guys don't have it on the screen? You have it on YouTube over there? It's like 10-second delay. Okay. Look what it says here. Comes this guy that was spotted today in New York, in Jumpsy. Here he is. And he gets to be miyabim every single one of these women. Azoi steht in the Mishnah. You see the difference between the computer and the board. But this is great to have on your refrigerator. Highly recommended. I think it's $15 without the magnet thing. All right, gewaldige stuff. Like I said, there's not a lot of money to be made in $15 with the shipping and everything. Zog the Mishnah. The eldest of the brothers. We know. We go to the eldest first. And if he wants to miyabim all four, something's wrong with him. But even so, he could be miyabim all four. Says the Mishnah, these are all halachas that we're very familiar with. In fact, it's a very uncomplicated daf, a very easy daf today. If somebody's married to 2 women and he dies, and the husband dies, so this halacha we know, very familiar. You're not miyabim both wives. In the previous case, these are different wives to different brothers, so you could be miyabim all 4. But if one brother has 2 wives, I'm not going to go ahead and do it. You're only miyabim 1, or you do chalitza to 1, and that chalitza or that yibum gives a ptur to the other tzara, to the co-wife. Says the Gemara, top of Memdal and Amud Aleph, what if a person is married to 2 women? One of them is a divorcee, she's pasal l'kuhuna. One of them is kosher l'kuhuna. And her husband dies. She could marry a kohen, but the other one can't marry a kohen. If anyways what you're doing here is performing a chalitza, which is like a get, do it to the one that's already divorced. Why ruin another woman, so to speak? As a Gemara, we had it once before, we'll have it again. But if he wants to do yibum, then if he feels like it, he can do yibum to anyone he wants. Says the Gemara, the lashon in the Mishnah is very interesting. It says, 4 brothers were married to 4 sisters. There's no mention of the plumber from Muncie at all. It says, if one of the dead guys wants to be miyabim the rest, he can be miyabim. If they're dead, there's no yibum by dead people. That's what it says in the Mishnah. So obviously you have to stick in that there's another brother somewhere. That's it. It's 4 from the brothers. There are brothers that are still alive. Says the Gemara, Harushus biyadai. Says the Gemara, Bezdin is going to allow one man to marry 4 women. They call the Yavam, they need to speak to him, and they speak to him. What does it mean they speak to him? They should just tell him, hey, perform evil. So the Gemara understands from the word that Bezdin, they give him good advice. It's important to give him the right eitzah, the right advice. He's 18 years old, and the Yevama, I have a picture starting at the beginning of next year as the email. Somebody sent in pictures of his grandmother performing Yibum, and I'm going to show it, Be'ezer Hashem. First time that we had live pictures. He sent me a video as well, but that I didn't get to do yet. Because many times Yevamos are elderly people that were married for many years, didn't have children, their husband dies, and even though they were married for 40, 50 years, they fall to Yibum. You have a grandmother falling to Yibum. The guy is 18 years old, the Yavam. They tell him, don't marry her. It's not a good shidduch. They give him the right idea. They give him advice. Who's zaken? If the Yavam is old, be Yalda, and she's young, it causes friction, it causes Shalom Bayis problems. The best idea is to marry somebody like you, from your type of community, from your country. It's not a good idea for an American to marry an Israeli, typically old person to marry a young person. Stick to what you know, stick to what you have. Yes, sometimes it works. Great. You don't need an elderly person. Go to a younger person like yourself. They tell him it's going to cause friction and fights. So what's the Gemara's question? So now that he's about to be miyabim 4 women, what's the proper advice you give a guy that's about to be miyabim 4 women? You're not going to be able to do this. You can't be married to 4 women. First of all, how are you going to be farness 4 women? You need a lot of parnasa for them. Each one with the credit cards, and the shopping, and the habits, and the purses, and all the stuff, the YSLs, Prados, etc., etc. 4 times. Can't do it. He's in real estate. He can handle it. He has enough money for all of them. Says Gemara, but you should be medayik in the lashon of the Mishnah. The Mishnah says 4. How come the Mishnah doesn't have 5 or 3? What's 4? What's the significance of 4? It seems like the Mishnah is telling us something. Every word means something here. It's a type of kamashmala. Arba'in tfeiloi. It's a good idea to stick to 4. 4 should be the limit. Come, there's plenty of chairs here. Look, Herman Miller chairs everywhere. These are $1,000 chairs. Enjoy. If you're sitting on the shvacha ones, you might want to switch. Says the Gemara that what? Okay, so we're getting into there's a mitzvah oina. The husband promises in his ksuba that he's going to fulfill relations with his wife, and depending, the Gemara in ksubas goes into it, depending on what kind of profession he has. Whatever he can do, that's what he's mechuyev to do for his wife. For instance, if he's on a ship all day, I think it's 1 every 6 months. If he's a gamel, this. If he's this, that. If he's a Talmud Chacham, once a week, Erev Shabbos, Erev Shabbos. That's the halacha. If he's retired every day, this is chiyuv. Whatever she wants, but that's what he has to give. Says the Gemara, he's a very wealthy guy. He happens to be a Talmud Chacham. So his chiyuv is 4 times a month. So therefore, what it's saying is, did I move? Sorry, let me get back into focus here. Okay. So it's a very interesting chiddush. One would think that his chiyuv per woman is 4 times a month. No. His chiyuv is to provide 4 times for however many women he has. So if he has 4 women, you divide whatever he could do. Again, whatever he's capable of, he's a Talmud Chacham, he's capable of 4 times a month. He has 4 women, 4 times. Oh, says the Gemara that if he has 4 women, now each woman is with him at least once a month. That's what it says here. So don't go for 5 women. 5 women is not good for you. Great. Next sugya. Now you came perfect time. We're starting a new sugya, new masechta. Mi shoya nasui. If somebody's married to 2 women and he dies, and they fall yibum to the brother. So what's the halacha? You either perform chalitza or you perform yibum. As the Gemara of Niyabim l'tarvayu. Now again, just to remind everybody, the style of the Gemara, these are not questions like, oh, unbelievable, oh, I have a great question, you should do yibum for 2. The Gemara knows the answer. The way the Gemara gets to the answer is through a question. It's always a question, answer, question, answer. It's a style. So let him perform yibum to both of the women that felt him. Why only to one? Omer Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Omer Rabbi Yochanan, Omer Kro, Asher Liyivne is Beis Achiv. It's singular. Bayis echad hu boina ve'ein boina shtei batim. He always builds one house, regardless of how many Yevamos fall to him. It's one. That's it. Let him perform chalitza to both. Again, perform chalitza, the whole shoe removal. I have a picture of it coming up next year. Everything. I didn't realize that she literally gets down on her knees to undo the shoe. How else? I never thought about it. How else is she going to get down there? He's standing up. He's not going to lift his leg up to her. She gets down, and maybe she could. I don't know. That's how it was done. Says Gemara, these are, by the way, a lot of these sugas we had bits and pieces, and we went through this as well. Gemara says, so let him perform chalitza to one. First, let him do yibum to one and perform chalitza to the other. Because obviously, as we're going to see in a second, if you perform chalitza to one, you cannot do yibum to the other. It's too late. Like we just said. But he was buying in one house. Let him do chalitza to another house. It's two different psukim. Each pasuk says you can do one. You can do one yibum and you can do one chalitza. So let him do one yibum to one woman and a chalitza to the second wife. Omakra im lo yachbetz. That hachafetz yabim, and we know this as well. Kol ha'oila liyibum oila chalitza. They're intertwined. The chalitza and the yibum are one and the same. If you could do chalitza, you have to be able to do yibum. If you could do yibum, you have to be able to do chalitza. Kol she'ein oila liyibum, ein oila chalitza. And therefore, since he already performed yibum and he cannot perform yibum again, so he cannot perform chalitza. V'oid shelo yoimru bayis miktzasi banui u'miktzasi chalatz. You don't want people to go around saying, look, he performed a little bit of yibum, a little bit of chalitza. V'yoimru, what do we care if we say? Says Gemara, okay, that could create a problem. If you do it in the right order, first you perform yibum, so then the other wife, you give a chalitza. What's the big deal if you do chalitza? Nothing happened. It's not an usher to do chalitza. So she removed the shoe and she spit at him. Big deal. But that's not a problem. The problem is people might get confused and think it's okay to do one yibum, one chalitza, so then you can do one chalitza, one yibum in the opposite order. Do chalitza first. And then that's a major isser. It's not isser karas, but it's an isser deraisa. To be miyabim once, you don't have to do yibum anymore. You performed chalitza, you can't do yibum. Ve'ema, the Gemara doesn't give up. Maybe the whole mitzvah of yibum only applies when there's only one yevama that fell. But if there's two yevamas, there shouldn't be any yibum at all. So this is, as soon as I saw this, I didn't understand the kasha, but that was the Gemara's answer. Now, the Gemara asks, why do we need a special pasuk to tell us that if the co-wife happens to be your daughter, then you don't perform yibum even to the co-wife? Forget your daughter. Of course, she can't fall to you. But even the co-wife, why do you need a special pasuk? If we just went ahead and said that two women who fall to you, they're both not bnei chalitza v'yibum, the Gemara just asks a question. Perhaps if two yevamas fall to you, you shouldn't do yibum at all. Okay, if you don't do yibum at all, then what if two yevamas fall to you? One of them happens to be a tzara, one of them happens to be erva, she's your daughter. We need a special pasuk to say you shouldn't be yavim the other one. But you just told me that if two yevamas fall to you, you don't do yibum at all. So what? Any special pasuk in another case that's even worse than this case, l'chayra? Says the Gemara, Pashat. Anybody that learned Yevamos knows that this is not a question. Why? When your daughter falls to you, she never fell to you, says the Gemara. You have two co-wives that fall to you. One of them is your daughter. Obviously, you're not going to be miyavim your own daughter. So she didn't fall to you. She never fell to you. So who fell to you? One woman. One woman, you should do yibum. That's why I need a special pasuk to say on that one woman who happens to be the co-wife of your own daughter, you shouldn't perform yibum. But don't bring a raya from here that two yevamas, maybe perhaps, if two women, two co-wives fall to you, your brother was married to two women, and they both fell to you, there shouldn't be yibum at all. So why taka is there? Why would I think there is? Says the Gemara, because it says in the pasuk, Elo yivimto yivimto riba. See the pasuk over here? Vimlo yachmas ishlakachas yivimto, v'alsa yivimto. Twice in the same pasuk it says the word yivimto. And therefore, I don't remember your name, but when you guys are looking on YouTube, you see the pasuk straight? Because I'm looking at it here and it's backwards. It's a mirror image. What do you say? You see, do you know how to read Hebrew? You're Kayim, but you don't know how to read Hebrew, do you? Check it out. It's good? How about you guys? You guys aren't on YouTube yet? No? They don't know how to get on. Okay. I guess if it was backwards, they would tell me from Zoom, no? Zog the Gemara. It's good. Okay. Now, what are you looking? Oh, that one. Yeah. By me, it's the. I don't know why I have a backwards image. Fine. So Yevimto tells me that if you have two Yevamos in red, the two Yevamos, they fall, and you miyabim one, and you do perform chalitza to the other. Hoysach has kshera. So the Mishnah tells us, top words of the Amud, if two Yevamos fall to a person, one of them is already a divorcee who cannot marry a kain, the other one is not a divorcee. So if you're performing chalitza, why mess up the one that can marry a kain? Just give chalitza. You don't care who you give chalitza to. What's the difference you do chalitza to? So let the woman who's already divorced get chalitza. What's the idea? Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Yosef Kanchon Rebbe, and we had this as well. Lo yishbach adam mei bayroi. Do not spill out your water. V'acherim tzrichim lahem. Like all the mothers tell their kids, you better eat your spinach because in Africa there are kids that are starving. What's the connection here from this Gemara? They learned it from here. If you have something like on Pesach, Matzah Pesach, you have all the gluten-free cookies, instead of throwing them out, there's someone out there that has gluten problems, save it for them. In other words, if you have clothing, if you have food, many times people have food, caterers, all sorts of different people have food, and they take it and they toss it into the garbage. By us, they used to say, oh, the FDA doesn't allow you to give it, different excuses. But anyway, there's something like that. I was just thinking, I heard two things that are semi-connected to here. Two Gewaldige Meises by the same person. There's a guy by the name of Jacob Lowy. He went through the war, and he collected Sfarim, antiques. Some of the most incredible Sfarim that I heard that he owned is a Shas from before the censor. Basically, the original Shas, the most original Shas you can get. He also had a Shulchan Aruch that said in the cover, Rabbi Yosef Karo Shlita. And many, many Sfarim. Crazy story. He goes to the museum of the Israeli National Museum and he says, I want to donate my entire collection. So they say, very nice, but you need to give us $5 million for preservation. So he said, no, thank you. So he went to the Canadian National Museum. You can look it up. They said, not only will we take them, we will give you a $2 million write-off for your taxes, and we'll dedicate a whole room called the Jacob Lowy. That is there to this very day. Just thought he kind of threw out imagine if those Sfarim went to like a yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael where everybody could enjoy and benefit. Now you have to go all the way to Canada. You can make people, I know, the guy that said this over, he saw the whole collection. You have to make an appointment. You can tell him to take out. The same guy said, though, another thing. He said that somebody told him, you're all going to H-E-L, you're all going to Gehenna. So why? He says, it's one thing if you guys spend a lot of time going to work and etc., and you have to work, make a parnasa, okay. But what excuse do you have when you're driving to work to listen to sports and music and stuff like that? For that, you don't have an excuse. And he said, because he said that many people that heard that speech that he gave started doing the daf while they were driving in different shurim, and it actually changed a lot of people. So that was also a concept of throwing out your water, throwing out time, that your own time. Forget stuff that you shouldn't be throwing out precious time that you have spending on shtusim. Okay, I know you didn't come from Musar, but whatever. That's once in a while we like to throw it in. Zok the Gemara. So actually, we're holding by a Mishnah. The official Mishnah, sponsored by MDY Tehillim Group, where we're down for Refuah Yisroel, Shidduchim, for Klal Yisroel, and for the MDY family. If you're brand new, you've never come to the shir, so that's costs $100 to say that, and it goes in 18. So they bought some very big tzaddik that wants people to join the Tehillim Group and down for Chaylim. He spent $1,800, actually $3,600, because he did that first prior 18. Okay. Anyway. We know it's a big mitzvah after you get divorced to remarry your divorcee, your ex. But this is a case where it's a big avera. Why? Because she went ahead and she married somebody else. After she married somebody else, you're not allowed to marry her. And he married her anyway. And as we learned, chalutza is similar to a grusha. Now, grusha is deraisa. Is chalutza deraisa? We'll see. But he gave her chalitza, and then he decided to marry her, which she's not allowed to. V'anoisei kroives chalutzasai. V'anoisei chalutzasai is the iser deraisa of lo yivna. V'anoisei kroives chalutzasai. And the one who marries his chalutza's, let's say, sister, yaitzi, he must take her out. He must divorce her. V'avlad mamzer, and any offspring that they have is considered a mamzer. Again, he divorced his wife. She went and married somebody else. I think I even have a picture, thing here. Yeah, here it is. Here's Levi was married to Rachel. Then Levi divorced Rachel. Then he married. No, that's somebody else. That's a different story. Okay, we're going to go there later. Says Vavlad Mamzer de Rebbe Kiva. Oh, this Reisha is Rebbe Kiva. Rebbe Kiva holds that these are lavim. It's a lav to marry your chalutza. It's a lav to marry your mamzer nushasai. So he holds that from a lav you can create a mamzer. It's a big machlokes. We'll hold later on. Daf Yomi test. It's actually a mishnah. We're going to discuss what creates a mamzer. According to Rebbe Kiva, he's the most machmer. In other words, he says you can make a mamzer even if you are over just on a lav. No chorus, no misa, nothing. Just an aveira in the Torah, not to marry your ex, that itself produces a mamzer. Not a mamzer. And they agree, and here's the chart. Levi married Rachel, then he divorced Rachel, then he married his sister. A sister is osur. You're not allowed to marry a chaysisha. She's not dead yet. He might wish she is. So, fine. That is a problem. In that case, Chacham say that the offspring is a mamzer. Says the Gemara. Does Rabbi Akiva in fact hold that if you marry your chalutza, you perform chalitza to a woman, and then you married her sister, you have a child, that child is a mamzer. Yes, to marry your ex that you divorced is a deraisa. But the sister of a chalutza is only midrabanan. Says the Gemara, Tane kroivas grushasa. You're right. We have to amend it and say that's talking about the relative of a divorcee, not a relative of a chalutza. Because it says afterwards in the end of the Mishnah. What are the last words in the end of the Mishnah? Good night, Tzaddik. You said, you come in here. What'd you say? Say it loud. I didn't hear.
Good night, Uncle.
Good night, Joel. Okay, bye. Wow, it's always a first. So, because it says, what are the last words in the Mishnah? That's the end of the Mishnah. That they agree that if you marry the relative of a grusha, mamzer. Where do they come? What's umaydim? Where do they wake up all of a sudden and say, we're maida to what? So we have to explain that they were agreed to something that was said already in the Mishnah. If that's what we were discussing, we're talking about a grusha, not a chalutza, then it makes a lot of sense that we're talking about that they agree that when it comes to a kares, it's also a mamzer. You don't need, like the Shita of Rebbe Lazar, you need, in order to create a mamzer, you need misas, bez. No, you don't need misa, even a kares. That's what they say in Moed. But if you're saying that we're not talking about a grusha at all, we're talking about something else, we're talking about a chalutza, the relative of a chalutza. So does it make any sense? The Rosh is talking about a chalutza, and also Chacham say, and we admit that by a grusha, it doesn't fit so well. Says Gemara, why not? Maybe you're right, Rebbe Kiva wasn't talking about a grusha, but they came to say, yes, we admit that there is a concept of a mamzer even from a kares. Says Gemara, come on, but that doesn't make any sense, because if you look at the Mishnah on Daf Mem Tes, that's exactly what the Mishnah on Daf Mem Tes is discussing. What is a mamzer? Rebbe Kiva says this, and it even says, Ezu mamzer, kol sher basa shula b'layavai. Rebbe Kiva, Rebbe Shimon atimni oimer, kol shechayam olav kares b'dei shamayim. Here, this is the shita that even kares creates a mamzer. B'halach kidvarav, it says in the Mishnah that the halach is like Rebbe Shimon atimni. So why would we repeat it over here? Says Gemara, even though it's very interesting because the Mishnah says that Allah is like Reb Shimon Atimni, but just because the Mishnah says that Allah is like Reb Shimon Atimni doesn't mean that Allah is like him. Could be Rebbe doesn't agree to it. Rebbe is just repeating over from other people. So over here we're telling you no, the Allah is in fact like Reb Shimon Atimni. Says Gemara, if that's the case, why did the Mishnah pick Kroiv as Grushasei Lamali? Why did it pick Dafka this case? There's other Karases. Why are we talking about Kroiv as Grushasei? El Shmamina, Ariba, obviously, because the Mishnah was discussing it. The Mishnah was not discussing Chalitza, was discussing a Grusha, and that's why then the Mishnah talks about a Grusha. Shmamina, Ariba. The Gemara is not giving up. Since it was mentioned in the Reisha by Rebbe Kiva, here, look, it says, Max Grushasei. Taninami, Kreves Grushasei. That's why Chachamim also mentioned it. Not a good right. You're right. It's such a good kasha. At the end of the day, we have no proof that because it says in the end of the Mishnah the Chacham are talking about a grusha, that the Reish is also talking about a grusha. Perhaps no, the Reish mentioned grusha, and that's why Chacham mentioned it also. So the Gemara says you're right. At the end of the day, we're talking about the kroiva of a chalutza, like we wanted to know. We wanted to understand from the beginning. We're not amending the Mishnah. We're not doing anything. Rebbe Kiva holds that to marry a relative of a chalutza is a mamzer. Or Rebbe Chia bar Abba, or Rebbe Yochanan, Hanutami the Rebbe Kiva, the makro beis chalutza la. So, but what's the pshat? Why? Why would Rebbe Kiva say such a thing? You know why? Because it says in the pasuk beis chalutz hanoah. When you hakosav kroi beisai. When you perform chalitza, you're performing chalitza to a house. A house means your wife. Let's take a look over here. So, Rashi says that in this case, right over here, what happened was, so I'm just going to show you the charts. I hope you guys could see this. The local guys, I don't know so much. It says like this. Reuven was married to Rachel and he went bye-bye. So, Shimon performs chalitza to Rachel. Now, Rachel has a sister, her name is Leah. She marries Yehuda. Yehuda and Shimon are brothers, the Debolman brothers. Yehuda is also a brother to the one that died, Reuven, right? They're all brothers. She, Leah, is, what is she called? She's Achois Chalutza. She's the sister of the one who received chalitza. And then Yehuda goes bye-bye. What does Shimon do? Shimon must perform chalitza again to Leah. But wait a minute. According to Rebbe Kiva, Yehuda had no business marrying the sister of a chalutza, so there's no kiddushin at all. And therefore, there's no chalitza required. He had no business marrying her, and when her husband dies, she doesn't fall at all. Zero. Why? Because she's considered a wife. Who? Rachel. Again, Rachel received chalitza. she's considered like a pure erva. Beis chalutzanal, says Rabbi Kiva. She's a house. She's a wife. Therefore, her sister, you cannot marry her. And whoever marries her, the kiddushin is not taifas. It's not a good kiddushin. And therefore, if the husband dies, that woman who got married illegally doesn't fall liyibum according to Rabbi Kiva. Omar Rav Yosef. Omar Rabbi Shimon Rebbe. Hakol moedim b'machzik rushasai. Listen to this. Everybody holds, says Rabbi Yosef, in the name of Rabbi Shimon Rebbe, that if you divorce your wife and she marries somebody else in between, and then you went ahead and you married her after she got divorced from the second guy, everybody holds shahavlad pogum lekahuna. Vlad means the daughter cannot marry a kohen. We just turned to Amud Beis, sponsored on Jolly Joe Kraus and family. Oy vey. And I don't remember what else I have to say here. Let me see if I can look it up. Oh, here we go. Sponsored anonymously as a zechus from Moshe Yaakov ben Shoshana and both Ruchnis and Gashmius. Yeah? That doesn't make sense. Yeah, that's what it says here. New word. Okay. But I saw some other wording, but weiter. Mana kol moedim. Who's everybody? Shimon HaTimni. This Shimon HaTimni that we mentioned before, and he's in the Mishnah Daf Mem Tes. That what? Shimon HaTimni ein mamzer mechayev lavim. He argues on Rabbi Kiva. He says, if you marry somebody that's a lav, it's just the Isser lav, there's no karas, you don't get the death, min hashamayim, you don't get any death. Rabbi Kiva holds it's a mamzer. Shimon HaTimni says it's not a mamzer. The mamzer lehava, I'll admit, you're right that it's not a mamzer. Pogam yahav, I'll admit to you that she cannot marry a kohen. You did something there. Yes, it's not considered a mamzer, but it's not good lineage, good enough to marry a kohen. And how do I know this? And he says, who's the only person in the world who cannot marry a widow? One person, kohen gadol. She'ein isur shavel kol. It's not an isur to anybody besides the kohen gadol. Nevertheless, b'na pagum, the son becomes pagum. Zu shisur shavel kol. This divorcee who married somebody in between and got married to you for the second time, any divorcee who does that, any din should be not pagum. You hear the Kal V'chomer? If an amanata kohen gadol who's only us to one person in the world, her son, if she marries the kohen gadol, her son becomes pasul. So certainly this woman who's also to many people, in other words, every divorcee in the world can never marry her husband again if she gets married to somebody in between, then her son should become a pagum, should be asur tikuna. Says the Gemara, but I could refute this. You know why her son becomes pagum? She herself becomes a pguma. That's a tremendous thing. She herself becomes also to another kohen. Let's say the kohen gadol dies, she cannot marry another kohen. So you see how powerful that union, that marriage between her and the kohen gadol is. Therefore, it's Michal, her son. No raya to our sugya, to a divorcee, a Yisraelis, got divorced from Reuben, married Shimon, got divorced from Shimon, and remarries Reuben. No raya that her son is a pagum. The Gemara says, it says in the pasuk, Ki toyeva. Here's the pasuk Rabbi Isai. The pasuk is referring to Yibum, that once you perform chalitza, nasari, not chalitza. Once you divorce your wife, you cannot remarry her if she marries somebody else. The first husband who divorced her cannot marry her again after she married another man. Ki soyeva. It's a toyeva. It's an abomination. What does that mean? So we learn from this, hi toyeva. I'll prove from the pasuk and the Gemara. By the way, I want you to remember this because the Gemara is going to take these words and learn another halacha from it. The Gemara is like bothered. What's hi toyeva? She. It should say toyeva. It's an abomination. What is hi toyeva? So it's coming to exclude somebody else. She is an abomination, but her son is not a chalal. Vein bonel toyev. V'od in another pircha tanya amatz grushasoi. if you remarry your divorcee, your ex, after she married another man, what does it say? And you married the woman that you performed chalitza on, and you marry your chalitza sister, Rebbe Kiva Omer, ein lo ba kiddushin. Rebbe Kiva says there's no kiddushin at all, ve'ena tzricha emenu get, and you don't need even a get. There's nothing happened. V'hi psula, she is puzzled for a kayin. Why? Because she turned into a zayna, uvlada puzzle, and her child is considered a mamzer. And we force him to divorce her. And Chacham say, Yesh le ba kedushin, the kedushin is good, utzricha menu get, and you need a get, v'ikshera, and she's kosher, uvlada kosher. It says in Mefurish that Chacham hold that the vlad is kosher if you marry your divorcee, your ex, after she married somebody else. It says what? Vlada kosher, her child is kosher, not like you said that it's possible. It says Gemara leman. What does it mean? The child is kosher. Lav lekuna, aren't we talking about kosher to kain? Loi lakahol. It means that you can marry Yisroel. Yachi ksher leman. But wait a minute, it has to mimic each other, right? It says she's kosher and her child is kosher. We just established, according to you, that he's kosher does not mean that he can marry a kain. It means that if they have a daughter marry a kain, it means that that daughter can marry Yisroel. So then, wouldn't it have to mimic the mother the same way and say that she can marry Yisroel? Wait a minute, that can't be. Then the mother, who is she kosher to? To Yisroel? Pshita. There's no such thing. If a woman is mizana and does anything, and she never becomes usher to marry Yisroel. At most, you can become usher to marry a kohen. You cannot become usher to marry Yisroel ever through his nose. Says Gemara, elalav lekuna. So when it says about the mother, it says the mother is kosher for kuna. Umedehi lekuna v'ladanav lekuna. They have to mimic each other. It's in the same Mishnah. So if it's saying that the mother is kosher for a kohen, then it means that the son is kosher for kohen. The children are kosher for kohen. Says Gemara Mida area. Who told you? Hakid Isav, Hakid Isav. No. The mother is talking about the mother's kosher for Kuna. The kid is kosher for Yisroel. Usually we like to match the whole Mishnah, but we're not forced. That we're going to say Hakid Isav, Hakid Isav, that one is the mother is referring to Kayin, the child is referring to Yisroel. Tiktani Reisha. Because the beginning says he psula uvlada puzzle, talking about her, she's puzzle and the child is puzzle. He psula man in Rebbe Kiva. Who's puzzle? The same question we had a second ago. Why should she become puzzle to marry Yisroel? Just from bimizana, you don't become puzzle. Elalav Laguna, we're talking about that she's kosher to kain. Okay, so she is kosher for kuna, puzzle for kuna. Sorry, puzzle Laguna. Vlada puzzle man. So then, what about her child? Cannot be for a kain. It seems like only for a kayin is her daughter puzzle, but for Yisroel kosher that can be Omer Rebbe Kiva Vlad Mamzer. The child is considered a mamzer, and we're talking about Rebbe Kiva, so puzzle for everything. Elabshita lakal. That means the child, which is a mamzer, is puzzle even to marry Yisroel, and the mother is puzzle to marry only a kayin. So you see that they're not in the same league. The mother, we're talking about a kain, child to Yisrael, and that's fine. We're okay with that. So the Reish is talking about a mother to a kain, a child to a Yisrael. So the same also, mother to kain, child to Yisrael, not a kasha. Now, what about that svara? You had a kasha before. You said that it says in the pasuk here. We'll go back here. Look at the chart. It's on the screen. We learned. If she got divorced and she married another man and then she married her original husband, that's an abomination. Toyeva. Seems like we're darshaning. She's bad, but her son is not. No, we're going to learn something else. V'hi toyeva nami, hi toyeva vein tzarasa toyeva, aval bonel toyevim. I think this is a chart that I made for this, if I'm not mistaken. So we have a lady that was divorced from Levi. Rachel's divorced from Levi. Then he remarried her. That's our case. After she married another man, she remarried. There was another man in between. And then he went and he married another woman. You hear? So first, it went like this. First he married Rachel, divorced Rachel. Rachel went ahead and married another guy in the street, got divorced from him, came back to him. That's a big isser. He toyev. But Levi had another wife, the 5 town. Now he has 2 wives. One is 100% asr to be married to, Mrs. Rachel, but also his 5 town woman. That's what we're saying. Now 5 town woman is a tzara of a grusha. So it doesn't do anything to the tzara, but yes, Rachel herself is going to be a problem. Her children are toyeva. Says the Gemara, Elo almana kasha. What do we ask? We said a machzor grushasai. This whole sugya, we started saying that if a person divorces a wife and the wife goes and marries another man, and then he takes her back, that the child is considered pagum, the vlad is pagum. And then we said a kavachomer. I'll prove it to you from an almana. But we said almana is different. Mal almana shekeni atzam mischalelas. So we took away the kavachomer. Almana, she herself becomes chalal. Eli idma'achit. Amar Rabbi Yosef, Amar Rabbi Shimon Berebi. Hakol moedim b'ba'al chayav increases shavad pagum. No. So let's take it back. If we turn back to Memdalad Amud Aleph, the last words. Hakol moedim b'machzor grushasa. Everybody admits that a machzor grusha, the son is the daughter in this case is pagum. We're taking it back. That's not what he said. What he said is Hakol moedim b'ba'al chayav increases. If a person has a relation with somebody that you chayav kares for, shavlat pagum. That's the case. Not a machzor grushasai. A chayav creases, which is worse than a machzor grushasai. Machzor grushasai is allowed. Chayav creases. 2 more minutes, we're done. Manakol meidim. Rabbi Yeshua. Dav gadol Rabbi Yeshua mazim chayav creases. Rabbi Yeshua holds in order to create a mamzer, you need the death penalty. Kares is not enough. Nihid the mamzer lehavi. You're right. It won't become a mamzer. According to Yeshua, that the kid is not a mamzer, but is going to be something called a pagum. He cannot marry into kuno. And this is the kavachomer I was telling you about. Is only to one person in the entire world. Who? Kohen Gadol. Pagum. Nevertheless, it has the ability to make her son. A chalal can't marry the daughter, can't marry a kohen. Zu shisur shavakol. This one. In other words, this chayve krisos that we're talking about, we're not talking about almana grush anymore. Now we switch the case. This chayve krisos case that everybody's also to, and it did shibna pagum. Even Rabbi Yeshua would admit that her son is a defected son, cannot marry the daughter cannot marry into kuna. If you're going to try the same trick, you try it on the other kavachomer when we spoke about a grusha. Try it on this one also. How can you bring me a raya from an almana to kohen gadol? That she herself becomes a chalala, she herself is ruined. She cannot marry another kohen. In this case also, when a person marries a woman who's chayiv krisos, he turned her also. She's just as bad as the almana to kohen gadol. She became a zayna, and therefore it's a great kavachomer. Have a wonderful day.